Welcome to Let's Talk About Anti-Semitism, a video series from Holocaust Museum Houston. Today, let's talk about the Blood Libel through time. First, let's remember that anti-Semitism means conscious or unconscious bias against Jews because they are Jews. This can include bias in attitudes, words, or actions. Anti-Semitism has existed for literally thousands of years. Some scholars call it the longest hatred because it has been around for so long. As just one example, in 410 BCE, a synagogue, which means a Jewish place of worship, was destroyed in the Egyptian city of Elephantine. This was more than 2,000 years ago. So why has anti-Semitism existed for so long? It's complicated, but it starts with the fact that Jews are different from those around them. They have a different religion, holidays, traditions, foods, and more. Sometimes Jews have been accepted for who they are, but sometimes they have faced discrimination or even violence because they are different. Today, in the United States, Jews are the victims of almost 70% of religious-based hate crimes, despite making up just 2% of the population. Anti-Semitism has been around for so long that it can seem normal. We might even believe or hear something that is anti-Semitic without realizing it. For example, the assumption that someone is rich because they are Jewish is an anti-Semitic stereotype, an oversimplified generalization about a group of people that assumes every member of the group is that way. Let's look at an example. Today, we are going to look at one particular anti-Semitic myth called the Blood Libel. This is not a stereotype, but a flat-out lie about Jews. We are going to go back in time to understand how this very weird myth started, how it has changed, and what it looks like today. There are some important things to know about the Blood Libel before we talk about what it is and where it comes from. First of all, it is a lie. It isn't based on actual facts about Jews. It is called a libel because it is not only false, but it damages reputations when it spreads. It has also caused real harm to Jews when it has appeared. Despite these things, the Blood Libel has continued and spread because it is like a rumor. Even though it isn't true, people keep repeating it anyway. Okay, now that we know these things, let's talk about where the Blood Libel rumor comes from. We begin during the Middle Ages in the year 1141 with a murder mystery in a town called Norwich, which was the second largest city in England. Our story centers on a boy called William, an apprentice leather worker from a relatively well-off Norwich family. Around Easter, William was found dead in the woods north of town. The local sheriff investigated, but wasn't able to find any clues about what happened. Things might have ended there, with a tragic and unsolved death, but William ended up having a long afterlife. An account appeared years later, written by a monk called Thomas, who did not have any first-hand knowledge of the crime. Without evidence, Thomas claimed that William was murdered by local Jews. Instead of blaming a specific Jewish person, Thomas claimed that the Jewish community was collectively responsible. He made up a story we now call the Blood Libel, which claims that every year a different Jewish community is chosen to murder a Christian child and harvest their blood as part of a religious ritual. This includes recreating the crucifixion of Jesus in order to mock Christianity. Thomas even claimed that William should be considered a saint because he died due to his Christian faith. This story is completely bizarre, but it is helpful to keep in mind that during this time, draining a bit of someone's blood was considered the cure for a vast number of medical problems, and anti-Semitism was common. This wouldn't have sounded quite as bizarre to a medieval audience. The story of William of Norwich spread across England and to continental Europe, and just like any rumor, it was added to and changed in the telling. More accusations cropped up, such as the story of Simon of Trent, shown here. This image shows a parallel and also untrue accusation in which Jews are shown stabbing a communion wafer, which in Catholic tradition is the body of Jesus. Because of the connection with the crucifixion and the timing of the discovery of William's body, many Blood Libel stories centered on Easter. Easter often falls around the same time of year as the Jewish holiday of Passover, so some stories claimed Jews used the blood of their victims to make matzah, the unleavened bread Jews eat during Passover. Let's pause here to note a few things about actual Jews. First of all, Jews are specifically forbidden from consuming blood, whether it comes from a human or an animal. For example, observant Jews will not order their steak rare. Jews do eat plenty of good food during holidays that have nothing to do with blood, such as babka, jelly donuts called sufganiyot, braided bread called challah, latkes, kugel, falafel and hummus, and much more. The blood libel has come to be associated with the Jewish holiday of Passover, which is actually a celebration of the Jewish escape from slavery in Egypt. Matzah, which the blood libel claims is made from blood, is actually unleavened bread similar to a cracker, which is made with flour and water and sometimes salt. It represents how the bread of the Israelites in the Passover story did not have enough time to rise before their escape. Despite the lack of truth, the blood libel spread. It appeared in other places in England and in what are now France, Italy, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, Syria, and more. There was even a blood libel accusation in the city of Messina in New York in the United States. In many of these places, although thankfully not in all cases, the blood libel accusation was followed by violence against the local Jewish community. Even when authority figures denounced this false rumor, it continued to spread and cause harm to Jewish communities on multiple continents. By the time the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, the blood libel was well known across Europe. Like so many other instances of historical anti-Semitism, the blood libel story was used by the Nazis in propaganda. This is the front page of a special issue of a Nazi newspaper called Der Stürmer, meaning the stormtrooper. The paper's tagline means, "The Jews are our misfortune." This issue is called ritual murder, another term for the blood libel. It was the most popular issue of Der Stürmer to be published. The Nazis combined this medieval anti-Semitic myth with the newer fake science that claimed Jews were actually a race to create the ideological basis for the Holocaust. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, some Jewish survivors tried to return to their communities, only to find that danger still lurked there even after the Nazis were gone. We now turn to Kielce, Poland on July 4th, 1946. A boy named Henrik had left home looking for food and been gone for several days. When he returned, his father took him to the local militia. When they asked where he had been, Henrik lied and said Jews had kidnapped him and held him in the basement of a building being used as a Jewish community center by a group of Holocaust survivors. We don't know for sure why Henrik lied, as he gave conflicting statements throughout his life. In one interview done when he was an adult, for example, Henrik claimed that his father coached him on what to say. Regardless of the reason for the lie, it had serious consequences. As blood libel stories usually are, Henrik's lie was easy to refute. After all, the building where the boy claimed he was held in the basement didn't even have a basement. But that didn't matter to the mob that showed up. 42 people were murdered and others were injured. This photo, taken shortly before the joint funeral for the victims, shows a distraught Alina Vubec with some of the coffins. Her aunt and 8-month-old niece were both murdered. This photo shows Marion Fish accompanying the coffins of his wife Rivka and 3-month-old son Abram to the cemetery. They had been shot by the Polish militia. Not even a month later, on July 15, 1946, the U.S. ambassador to Poland sent a message to the Secretary of State blaming the victims for their own murder, saying, "The underlying cause is, in our opinion, shared by the Jewish community and by responsible American citizens of the Jewish race who are now in Poland." You would think the blood libel wouldn't survive into modern day, but unfortunately it has. It has survived in its original medieval form. For example, in 2019, a gunman entered a synagogue in Poway, California, and started shooting, killing one congregant and injuring 3 others, including the rabbi. His manifesto included a line mentioning a purported blood libel victim from Italy named Simon. "You were not forgotten, Simon of Trent. The horror that you and countless children have endured at the hands of the Jews will never be forgiven." This lie spread beyond Europe as well. In 2013, a Palestinian nonprofit had to apologize for posting an article criticizing then U.S. President Barack Obama for hosting a Passover Seder at the White House. The article included the passage, "Does Obama in fact know the relationship, for example, between Passover and Christian blood, or Passover and Jewish blood rituals? Much of the chatter and gossip about historical Jewish blood rituals in Europe are real and not fake as they claim. The Jews used the blood of Christians in the Jewish Passover. They eventually apologized, but apologies do little once a rumor has already spread further. While the original form of the blood libel has stuck around, it has also been remixed for modern times. In 2021, the president of Turkey said, "They are murderers to the point that they kill children who are 5 or 6 years old. They are only satisfied by sucking their blood." Jews as vampiric blood drinkers sounds just like the original blood libel, right? The difference is that the remix refers to the state of Israel. The rumor of the blood libel is used frequently by both Middle Eastern and Western critics of the state of Israel. This combines the old myth of the blood libel with the new idea of anti-Zionism, the desire for the elimination of Israel. People who do this are quick to deny that they are anti-Semitic. But perhaps without even realizing it, they are repeating the same old anti-Semitic lie, the blood libel, remixed for the modern age. This myth results in real harassment and violence towards both Israelis and Jews around the world. So now that we know this history and the harm it has caused, what can we do? Well, if you aren't Jewish, you can start by learning a little more about Jews and their traditions. Consider attending a Passover Seder, following some Jewish creators on social media, or reading books by Jewish authors. If you see anti-Semitism, including the blood libel, in either its original or remixed forms, report it. If you know the person who posted it, help educate them about the history of the blood libel. Remember, one of the lessons of the Holocaust is that anti-Semitism isn't just a Jewish problem. When it is left unchecked, it creates problems for all of society. That's the end of the video, but unfortunately not the end of the blood libel. If we don't stand up to this ancient hatred, it will only continue to spread. You have taken an important step by learning about this medieval myth and how it is remixed today. Holocaust Museum Houston would also like to thank the generous donors who made Let's Talk About Anti-Semitism possible: the Texas Holocaust Genocide and Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission, the Houston Jewish Community Foundation, Kathy and Dr. Joseph Yankovic, Richard Lowenstern, Diane Merrill, and the Sivia and Melvin Wolf Family Foundation. Thank you.